The last light of Ashwood, the village of Ashwood, sat hidden among endless forests and misty hills, a place most travelers overlooked. To Clara Whitmore, it was simply home quiet, small and unremarkable. But on one cold autumn night, everything changed. Clara was walking back from the fields when she noticed something strange. Not a single candle burned in the cottages. Not a single lantern glowed in the square. The entire village was dark. And as she hurried through the empty streets, she heard voices, drawn by the sound. She came to the village square, where a crowd had gathered around Elder Hawthorne, the oldest man in Ashwood. In his trembling hands, he held a silver key. His face, usually so full of life and laughter, was drawn and pale. "The heart has gone out," he said gravely. "The eternal flame beneath the manor is dead. Without it, the shadows will rise." The crowd gasped. All eyes turned to Clara. "You heard the elder," said a woman with a frightened voice. "It falls to you." Fear flooded Clara, but before she could say a word, Elder Hawthorne placed the silver key in her palm. Then he stepped aside, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of the world had just fallen from them. Without another word, Clara started toward the manor. Every step echoed the dread pounding in her heart. What was this heart? Why had it fallen to her? As she neared the manor, a sense of foreboding grew within her. It wasn't just the responsibility, the fear of failing her village, though those were heavy burdens indeed. Something about the very stones of the manor repelled her, as if it were a beast sensing danger and preparing to strike. It made no sense. Ashwood Manor had been abandoned for generations. Since when had it become a place of fear? She had played here as a child, explored its dusty rooms countless times. Hadn't the roof caved in long ago? Yet the manor loomed before her, seemingly unchanged, as imposing as ever. As Clara walked through the overgrown gardens, she noticed something odd. Thorns. They seemed to sprout from the ground itself, forming a thorny barrier around the house. But when she touched one of the thorny vines, she felt nothing but smooth bark. Startled, she pulled her hand away. Why did she feel pain, yet see no thorns? Fear constricted her throat. Pushing open the heavy oak door, she stepped inside. The manor was plunged in darkness, lit only by the faint glow of moonlight filtering through cracks in the boarded windows. Dust motes danced in the pale light, disturbed by a sudden draft that sent shivers down her spine. As she moved deeper into the manor, the flickering beams of moonlight revealed more than just dust. Strange symbols were carved into the door frames, glowing faintly. They looked ancient, alien, and terribly malevolent. She had never seen them before. But as she traced their shapes with her fingers, a jolt of recognition shot through her, along with a memory, vivid and clear. She had seen these markings before in her dreams. Dreams she'd had since she was a child. Dreams of a shadowed place filled with whispering voices and the constant feeling of being watched. Dreams that always ended with the same terrifying image, a faceless figure cloaked in darkness, reaching for her with long skeletal fingers. Now awake, Clara realized with a jolt that the dreams weren't memories of some past life. They were warnings of this moment. The manor, once her favorite place of adventure, now felt like a tomb. Each creaking floorboard, each rustle of wind through the broken window panes sounded like a whispered threat. Her breaths quickened. She pressed on, driven by a sense of urgency, compelled by some unseen force to reach the heart of the manor. But she was not alone. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement, dark shapes shifting in the gloom. As she rounded a corner, they came into view. Dozens of figures, gaunt and twisted, seemed to emerge from the shadows themselves. Their eyes burned with an eerie green light, and their mouths hung open in silent screams. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but Clara stood her ground. She had no idea what these creatures were, where they came from, or how to stop them. But she knew she couldn't run. Not from this, not from anything. Her feet were planted firmly on the ground, her gaze steady. If she was to protect Ashwood, she had to be brave. She descended into the manor's underground halls. The air was damp, the walls covered in moss, the silence heavy. The stairs ended at the bottom of a shaft, sunk deep into the earth. The air grew colder as she descended into the earth. The tunnel reeked of mildew and decay. A single lantern hanging from the ceiling cast grotesque shadows that danced around her. She shivered, pulling her shawl tighter despite the stifling heat. The passage opened into a vast cavern. Before her, the source of the chilling draft she had felt above. A gaping hole in the side of the cavern wall. It was veiled in shadow, but Clara could sense its vast emptiness. It beckoned to her, promising unknown dangers. A prickling sensation crawled up her arms. This place was wrong. Deeply, terribly wrong. She should turn back, flee while she still could. But something compelled her forward. At last, she reached the chamber where the great brazier stood. It dominated the room. Its size and intricacy unlike anything she had ever seen. Runes and strange symbols covered every inch of its surface, pulsing with a faint green glow that matched the eyes of the creatures that stalked Ashwood. And within the brazier's depths, instead of comforting flames, there was only cold, black emptiness. From the shadows, a cloaked figure emerged. It was tall and thin, its edges seeming to melt into the darkness, its features obscured by the hood of its robe. Only a pair of glowing green eyes pierced the gloom, fixing their icy gaze upon her. "You are too late," it rasped, its voice like the scraping of bone on stone. "Ashwood will fall." Terror threatened to consume her. But then she remembered her mother's final words, spoken years ago on her deathbed, words Clara had dismissed as fanciful fantasy. "The flame is not only in the brazier, Clara, 'tis in you." Her mother had been keeper before her, and before her, their mothers had protected Ashwood for generations. Their bloodline was bound to this place, to this duty. Her hands shook as she gripped the silver key. The key that had lain dormant for so long, buried with her family's fading memories, suddenly thrummed with power. Closing her eyes, she focused on the warmth spreading through her chest. The same feeling she had when playing in her mother's favorite sunlit meadow. The feeling of life and light. Slowly, the key began to glow, a faint golden light that pushed back the oppressive gloom. Opening her eyes, she thrust the key into the brazier.
The chamber erupted in brilliant fire, banishing the shadows and filling the cavern with warmth.
The figure recoiled, shrieking in rage and agony as the flames purified and strengthened, driving back the encroaching darkness. With a final, ear-splitting screech, it twisted and broke apart until it vanished, dissolving into wisps of black smoke. When Clara climbed back into the night, the village lamps flickered to life once more. The people bowed their heads in silence, their eyes filled with awe. She had done it. She was no longer just Clara Whitmore, the farmer's daughter. She was the keeper of the flame, bound forever to protect Ashwood. But as the villagers began to stir, their murmured voices carrying on the wind, she knew the shadows wouldn't rest forever. The silence that had fallen over Ashwood had been unnatural, a lull before the storm. Though peace had returned for now, she knew her battle was just beginning.